we're honored to invite Senator Francis Black to join us.
Thank you very much, and I have to say, I want to firstly thank Sue and all who are involved in the Jewish Anti-Zionist, this amazing Congress, and I'm actually quite emotional today to see so many people here, and it just lifts my heart when I look at, the fact that you're all here today and take time out of your busy lives, despite everything that's going on, despite the horror and despite the frustration and despite the feeling at times that the world has looked away, and we're all still here and we're still fighting and we're still demanding that the world acts, that the international community acts, and that Ireland acts. So yes, it's really powerful to be here today. Look, I'm going to talk about the Occupied Territories Bill, and I hope that's okay. I just want to say a little bit about the journey that I've been on with this bill, and where we are and what's happening. And we all know that, the situation in Palestine, not just in Gaza, but across the West Bank, remains absolutely catastrophic. And here in Ireland, our government made a promise in the election campaign, and I want to talk a little bit about that promise and where it stands and what I suppose you and I can do to make sure that it's fully kept. And I introduced that bill in 2018 after being out visiting the West Bank, and I was in Gaza, and the experiences that I had back then will stay with me forever, and Palestine will always have a huge piece of my heart. So in November 2024, both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael went into the general election promising to pass the Occupied Territories Bill. They didn't just say they wanted to, they actually went further, and they said that under international law, Ireland is actually required to act, and we have an obligation. And we all know that there's, as others have said, there's a so-called ceasefire. And for some people, like our government and the media, etc., they seem to think that that means that the urgency on the situation has passed. And we all know it definitely has not, and people are still being killed, and one of the biggest land grabs in decades is still happening in the West Bank right now, and homes are being demolished, Palestinians driven from their land, illegal settlements are expanding on stolen land, and recently, as we all know, and some of you may not know, the government announced that it will finally act, but only a partial ban on trade with illegal Israeli settlements, that they will ban the import of physical goods but not services. And of course, those goods should be absolutely banned, but it is absolutely not enough. It is incomplete, and it omits the majority of Irish trade with these settlements. The government has chosen to exclude services, tech, IT, financial services, tourism. It's deliberately choosing to let those companies off the hook. Those services are roughly 70% of what Ireland trades with Israel, and we know how important it is to the maintenance of the illegal settlements. So by leaving services out, the government has greatly undermined the scope of this legislation, and to date they've not given any coherent, detailed justification for this. So last year, the Oireachtas Foreign Affairs Committee spent weeks listening to officials and legal experts on this issue, and they voted unanimously after we presented our case that we can do this, goods and services, and that this is legal. They voted unanimously, including Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael members, that the ban should be comprehensive and include all trade, both goods and services. And that is the standard that was set in the original Occupied Territories Bill that I tabled back in 2018. And it is actually what the International Court of Justice has clearly said is required under international law. And yesterday, the same government members in the Foreign Affairs Committee voted against services. So in July, as I said, 2024, the International Court of Justice, the highest court in the entire UN system, made it absolutely crystal clear the Israeli settlements built on occupied Palestinian lands are illegal. Every country, including Ireland, is obliged not to provide any support to them. And that means ending all trade with those settlements, both goods and services. The Tánaiste Simon Harris and Taoiseach Micheál Martin have both actually acknowledged this, and they have used the words obligation. Recently, the governments published their own legal analysis, and they said, just this is recently when they published their own legal analysis, the only reasonable reading of the ICJ opinion is that complete prohibition on trade with Israeli settlements is required. So they've said that themselves. We also know over 400 of Ireland's most senior lawyers have written to the government saying the same thing. The political will to go the full distance is all now that is missing, and it's deeply disappointing that the government seems to be disregarding the Foreign Affairs Committee's unanimous position last year and the ICJ ruling. But let me say this, it's not too late for them to do the right thing and what is necessary. When the bill finally hits the floor of the Dáil the week after next, I have a clear job, and that's why I'm here today. I need your help. I will do absolutely everything in my power to work with opposition parties, and I have done all this week, and any government TDs who want to do the right thing here, to table amendments to put services back into the bill. And that has been my clear position since 2018, and I will work absolutely tooth and nail to make it happen. And my amendment tabled in the Seanad will call for a full trade ban with illegal settlements in line with the ICJ advisory opinion, and that is the standard that we must hold to. If the government don't listen and ban goods only, the very next morning I will walk into the Oireachtas and table the Occupied Territories Ban on Trade in Services Bill 2026, and I will never give up. We won't stop until... We are not going to stop until we do what's right. When I introduced the bill in 2018, I really thought that Ireland was going to lead on this issue. In 1987, we became the first Western country to ban trade with apartheid South Africa, and within years, many countries had followed. It changed the course of history. And the same thing, I believe, is happening now. Last September, Spain passed their own Occupied Territories Bill, including both goods and services. Belgium, Slovenia, the Netherlands, France and Sweden have all announced their support, and now we know that Norway is introducing their own bill. And as far as I know, Australia are now, I've been in contact with legislators in Australia who are now looking to do the same. The dominoes are starting to fall, and that's what I want to say here today. And the way to push for action at EU level is to act here now and do this fully and completely. And if Spain can do it, Ireland can absolutely do it. So I want to be clear about what this bill actually does, because there's been a lot of spin and scaremongering, and this is a very modest, targeted measure. You know, and really my aim is to get this bill passed in its entirety, and then let's start working on full sanctions, full BDS, because that's what's absolutely needed, there's no doubt about it. So as I say, this is a modest targeted measure. It says a small number of companies will no longer be able to trade with and profit from illegal settlements built on stolen Palestinian land. And that's basically what the bill is. And the vast majority of companies operating in Ireland, American or otherwise, are not trading with those settlements because the settlements are illegal and they know it. So the reality is that spin and scaremongering that sometimes the government are putting out, that message, you know, that we're going to lose trade. I mean, really, I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous argument that we're going to lose trade because of this bill. It's farcical. I want to speak a little bit about the reality on the ground. The UN Commission of Inquiry published its latest report, and it found that Israeli forces have deliberately targeted Palestinian children in Gaza, amounting to genocide. The report documents the deaths of more than 20,000 children and the injury of over 44,000 since October 2023. And it makes clear that the killing has not stopped with the ceasefire. Children are still being killed. I also want to mention the deeply researched investigation published in the Dutch newspaper De Volkskrant, which has been awarded one of the Europe's most prestigious journalism prizes, the European Press Prize. Maud Efting and William Feenstra spoke with 17 doctors and a nurse from the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and the Netherlands, who had worked in hospitals and clinics across Gaza. They are among the last international eyewitnesses that we have, because independent access for journalists, sorry about this now, have been almost entirely shut off, which we all know. 15 of those doctors described the very same thing. At least 114 children aged 15 and under, many of them just 3, 4, or 7 years old, arriving with a single bullet wound to the head and chest. That's what we're dealing with here. That's the inhumanity, the destruction. A single precise shot to a small child is not the chaos of a ceasefire. It is absolutely deliberate. And that's what we're asked to keep trading with. Outrageous. And I also want to take a moment to talk about what the illegal settlements actually look like on the ground. Because some in government talk about this as though it's an abstract legal argument. It is not. It's happening to real families. Right now, Save the Children analysed UN data and found that 685 children were displaced by settler violence in just the first 3 months of 2026. And to put that into context, the average for the same period in the 3 previous years was 63. 10 times more children in January alone. Around 350 children were among nearly 700 Palestinians forcibly displaced from 9 communities, with settler violence frequently assisted or facilitated by Israeli security forces. Absolute terrorism. Médecins Sans Frontières documented a family of 6 shot while simply driving home. Only 2 sons survived. Their brothers were 5 and 7 years old. Human Rights Watch has documented settlers invading communities on a daily basis, firing live ammunition, burning homes, attacking families in their beds. Of the hundreds of settler violence cases documented since October 2023, only 3% resulted in any conviction whatsoever. 3% because the Israeli government provides weapons to settlers and fails to hold them accountable. It is state-enabled violence, and it's absolute terrorism. And this is what we are trading with, and it has to end. So, as I say, I know that more needs to be done. You know, like this bill is just a tiny minimum step. But we have to hold the government to account. We cannot let them away with the promises they made and not follow through. We absolutely need full BDS, but this is the first minimum step, and we need this bill to come back to the Dáil. We need it to be complete, covering goods and services, and we need it urgently. Not when things look worse again, we need it now. So, today, you might say, what can we do? And you know, and I know everybody can feel tired and exhausted, and I know many of you have written to government TDs, have phoned government TDs, and, you know, have got no response. But I would say to you, please keep it going. We have a week now before this bill comes in. It'll be coming in next Tuesday week, and we've a bit of lobbying to do. We've a bit of work to do. So I would ask you all to write to your TDs, especially government TDs, those in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, in your own constituencies. Be very, very targeted. Email them, call them, you know, call their office, show up at their clinic, but do it in a respectful way and say, what are you doing? What are you doing for Palestine? Tell them that you have not forgotten what's happening to the people of Palestine. Tell them that you are watching. Tell them that an election promise made at the worst moment of a genocide is not one that gets quietly shelved when the headlines move on. Tell them that a partial ban is not good enough and that Ireland must honour its obligations under international law in full. I would ask you to talk to your neighbours, to your families, to your colleagues. The scaremongering campaign that was run against this bill before, quite recently actually, and a lot of it was last year and a lot of it was this year, the scare that was run was coordinated and it was extremely powerful. And the only thing that counters that is people power. Ordinary people like us making clear that we know the difference between an obligation under international law and political cowardice. In the early 90s, when the Oslo Accords were signed, there were about 250,000 illegal settlers in the occupied West Bank. And when I first tabled this bill in 2018, that number had risen to 600,000. Today, it's over 750,000. And if we do nothing, we all know there will be no Palestinian state left to recognise. So we can't fix this alone. We're required morally and legally under the ICJ ruling to stop doing anything that makes this worse. Trading with those settlements makes us complicit, and it's indefensible, and it really has to stop as soon as is possible. And I believe that the government now are hoping kind of that this will all go away and everything is going to settle down and that Palestine now is not a priority for the Irish people. And we have to let them know that we're not giving up on this. We have to keep going. I've been travelling the length and breadth of this country, holding public meetings packed to the rafters, and I will continue to do so all over the country. We have to keep going until this bill gets passed in its entirety, fully and completely. And the way the ICJ said it must be, we have to hold the government to their commitment. A partial ban is not the finish line. Services must be included, and that is the absolute minimum standard. And that's what I am going to fight for, and that's what I'm asking you today to fight for. And I understand, it's so powerful to see everybody here today and to see you all saying, what can we do? What are we going to do? We have to tap into our resilience. And I was just talking down there to Eamon, and I was saying, I remember, you know, shortly after the genocide, and I had worked by that point probably 5 years on the bill, and really pushing and pushing and pushing. And I hit a wall. I actually hit a wall when I saw the devastation that's happening in Gaza. And I thought, oh my God, how do we fight this? But there was something in me. There was a pilot light that remembers the young woman in Gaza who, when I sat around the table saying, why have the international community abandoned us? And I swore then that I would never abandon the Palestinian people. And I ask every single one of you here today to tap into your resilience. We can do this. We can make a difference. We have to keep going because none of us are free until the Palestinian people are free. Gura míle míle maith agam. Thank you.